Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to the Strictly Business Podcast with Jon Stanko and Mike Ritz.
Y'all ready for this?
It's not personal, son. It's strictly business.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Strictly Business Podcast. Jon Stanko and Mike Ritz here, getting ready to give you our picks for the Week 3 of the NFL season. Mike, I think we'll both admit that last week was a rough week in terms of the picks. For me especially, I'll admit it's the worst week that I've ever had in picking games. But Week 2 posed a lot of difficulties for us.
Yeah, Week 2 was certainly a week to forget, especially for the both of us. But it was an enjoyable week to watch. A lot of close games. Unfortunately, it didn't bode well for our predictions.
No, it did not. I will say this: I went in a dismal 4-12. It is awful. It's tragic. Yeah. It's horrific. I wish I had Stephen A. Smith's vocabulary so I can go off on more pessimistic adjectives to describe my week of picks. It was terrible. You went 6-10, which actually was, I think, the average of what most of the games were like. Most of the week was like for most people. So I guess you can't be too ashamed of that 6-10 because there were a lot of games that just did not go as people expected.
No, definitely not. And,
but all right.
I can't be having too many weeks of 6-10 though, Stanko. 6-10
I can't have any weeks of 4-12, so that's never happened. Oh, and we should also point out, watching the Alabama-Florida game, the Alabama quarterback just dinged up his arm coming out of the game.
Wow.
I want to point that out. So he's having a really good day too, 402 passing yards. Anyway, getting back to the NFL, Mike, we both had the Falcons Thursday night, but we did not have them as badly beating the Bucs as they did. We were doing a podcast while that game was on, and man, oh man, 56-14 the final score.
Yeah, it was a rough one for the Bucs. The Falcons are good. The Falcons are really good. I still say that they're a much better team at home. I will say that than on the road. But this is a completely different team than last year. Last year they just had an abysmal year compared to, especially with the talent that they've had. And this was without Roddy White. They were without Roddy White, correct?
They were out. Yes, he did not play. Did not even suit up.
And they still put up 56 points. And I get the Bucs are bad, but it was 56-0 at one point. It was 28-0. I think after the first quarter, or if not, into the first few minutes of the second quarter. And this game was over basically from the kickoff.
Yeah, and Falcons drove right down the field, and it took less than 3 minutes for them to score a touchdown. And everyone on Twitter was like, this could get ugly. And then it did. It got really, really ugly. But good for us. We both started off the week 1-0. So already off to a better start than last week.
Oh, definitely.
But you know what? We're going to jump right into week 3. It should also be known you're ahead of me by 2 games in the picks at this point in the season.
You already know.
You have a +2 advantage. But we're going to dive right into the meat of it because we're going to go right to a game that I know you're going to have trouble picking. We're going to the San Diego Chargers going to Buffalo to play in the Mecca and to play against the Bills. Who you got, Mike Ritz? The Bills are 2-0.
It was hard. I picked the Dolphins last week going into Ralph Wilson Stadium, and sure enough, the Bills just said they were so aggravated with me because I've been such an advocate for home games, Ralph Wilson Stadium. It is the Mecca, and they proved to me once again how valuable playing at Ralph Wilson Stadium is. However, I got to go with the Chargers this week, only because have you seen the Bills' stats? They can't defend the pass at all.
I completely agree with you, yep.
They are 28th overall in trying to control the pass. They give up 275 yards a game. That's going up against a Chargers team who, without Ryan Matthews,
is going to throw the ball.
Is going to be throwing the ball 24/7. So just by that, obviously, San Diego's coming off a huge win against Seattle. it can be a trap game for them, but I still believe the Chargers have enough here to do some damage in Buffalo. So I'm gonna stick with the Chargers.
I'm surprised you picked the Chargers. I thought we were going to disagree right off the bat, but I got the Chargers as well, and you stole my point. The Bills are in 28th in pass defense, allowing 280 yards per game, just about. And, I mean, you look at Ryan Matthews not in that lineup. They have Donald Brown and Danny Woodhead now, who are two very good receiving backs. They're going to be their top two backs for the Chargers. And what about Antonio Gates last week with 3 touchdowns for the Chargers? The fountain of youth he found. And frankly, the Chargers outplayed the Seattle Seahawks for the entire game. So they really impressed me last week. And listen, I think that with EJ Manuel, this team is going to go out. He goes right now. They also only rank 26th in the NFL in passing offense. And I read on Chris Mortensen retweeted someone today who firmly believes that out of 21 out of the 22 spots on the starting roster for the Bills, they can team up with anyone in the NFL. But it's that 22nd spot, that quarterback position that's holding them back. And I don't think that E.J. Manuel is ready to take that step. And I think that Philip Rivers is playing out of his mind right now and playing really good football. So I got to go with the Chargers too.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. And, like, the way the Chargers are, ever since LaDainian Tomlinson has left that squad a while ago, they never really had. I mean, I feel like they run a bunch of sets and different looks that they don't need an every down kind of back anymore. They throw a lot of draw plays at you, a lot of dump offs. So like you said with Donald Brown, and even guys like Eddie Royal and Keenan Allen, you see a lot of them taking the ball in the backfield. So the Chargers have a lot of weapons offensively that frankly the Bills can keep up with.
Yeah, and I will say though that Sammy Watkins making an immediate impact for the Bills. Absolutely immediate. 11 receptions for 148 yards and 1 touchdown. Their next highest receiver, 5 receptions for Robert Woods and no touchdowns. So it's a rookie making an automatic impact for the Bills, but I don't think he brings enough to the table to turn the tide. So I got the Chargers striking down the Bills. We both agree there.
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's dive into a game that. For me, it's personal because Patriots game, but I also think it's probably maybe the easiest game of the week to pick. The Patriots are hosting the Oakland Raiders at 1 o'clock. It's the home opener for the Patriots. They are 14-point favorites. Raiders come in at 0-2, being outplayed substantially in both their games, and the Patriots are coming in off a pretty easy win over the aging Peterson-less Minnesota Vikings. Mike, I don't know about you, but this one's pretty straightforward. I think Patriots dominate this game.
This is my lock of the week. Patriots, there's no way they're going to lose this game. Oakland is so terrible, and they were so bad last week against the Texans, who aren't really that good of a football team. And it's the Patriots home opener, and there's no way the Patriots losing this game. They've obviously too many weapons. Oakland just doesn't have anything going for them right now. So it's simply put, Patriots are my lock of the week.
I will say they are not my lock of the week because it should also be noted that both of our locks of the week last week lost in the New Orleans Saints, who lost to the Browns. So I'm not gonna continue the jinx, and I'm not gonna pick the Patriots as my lock of the week because I'm just superstitious like that. But I agree the Patriots should win handily. They are 14-point favorites. I'm worried for Derek Carr at he's a rookie quarterback going against an experienced secondary that contains the likes of Darrelle Revis. Will he throw to Darrelle Revis once? I think that's a legitimate question to ask. Does he throw in his direction at all? I honestly don't see more than 3 pass attempts on the side of the field that Darrelle Revis is on. I mean, Derek Carr's got to be terrified of him.
Yeah, but when you're down 28-0 early, I don't think it's going to matter. So I'm sure he'll get some. He'll throw his way because it's gonna be a blowout. So I don't think it's gonna matter. Thank you.
All right, fair point. Moving on to another 1 o'clock game, we got the Dallas Cowboys coming off a big win against the Tennessee Titans, who people were high on. They're going to St. Louis to play the Rams, who are 1-1, picking up the win last week. How do you see this one shaking out, Mike? Cowboys Rams.
I mean, the Cowboys were a completely different team last week than in Week 1. They looked pretty good, and that's the kind of display that I thought I still think the Cowboys are going to bring. I have to finish second in the division, But yeah, here I have the Cowboys improving to 2-1, playing in St. Louis. St. Louis, not a very good team. Their win came up against a bad Buccaneers team that we saw on Thursday. They got crushed, like we spoke about before. And frankly, Bucs should have won that game. I don't know if you saw the end of it. They lost on a 10-second runoff because the guy was hurt, and they didn't have any timeouts left. So they lost on a 10-second runoff. But the Rams just don't have enough going up against the Cowboys. And then the Cowboys really had a good bounce-back game. Last week, beat a good Titans team. Their offense looked great, and their defense surprisingly stood. So yeah, the Cowboys looked great last week. I think they have a lot of weapons that they know how to use on the offensive side. I think their offense is going to be way too much for the Rams.
Yeah, how about DeMarco Murray thus far? If you were to have, this is crazy, but if you were to have an early MVP candidate 2 weeks into the season, which is absolutely insane for me to even say this, but you got to think about DeMarco Murray's first 2 games: 51 rushing attempts, 285 yards, averaging 5.6 yards per carry, and has 2 touchdowns as well. Also, he's received multiple passes too. So DeMarco Murray, if he can carry the load of this offense for an entire season and stay healthy, which has been a big problem for him, the Cowboys may surpass my expectations, and they may surpass all expectations. Because you're right, the defense, I think, it stood pat except for that opening portion against the 49ers where they got absolutely ransacked. But you got to hope Des Bryant stays healthy, questionable heading into this one. But even if Des Bryant doesn't play, I still have the Cowboys coming out on top.
Yeah, I just really have no faith in the Rams. I didn't have any faith in them last week. They surprised us with a win, but the Rams, I still think they're one of the worst teams in football.
Yeah, especially with their quarterback situation. So we both agree there. We're agreeing on every game thus far, Mike. We're 3 for 3? 3 for 3. Well, let's do another 1 o'clock game. It contains 2 of your favorite teams, the Washington Redskins heading to the Philadelphia Eagles.
This is such a tough game, though. I think any game further now that Kirk Cousins is in is going to make me want to take the Redskins in any game. I mean, I just think that the Redskins are a completely different football team with Kirk Cousins as their quarterback. RG3 obviously out for the year. This guy's going to – this is his shot. This is his shot. Week 3 looks like Kirk Cousins is going to be the every-week quarterback, the leader of this team, trying to bring his team into the playoffs. And they're going to look against a really good Philadelphia Eagles team. Unfortunately for Kirk Cousins, they're playing Philly in Philly. Philly is very good, and I have Philly winning the division, and I have them winning in Week 3 against the Redskins. Eagles have way too many weapons. They're great at home. I think that as good as Kirk Cousins is, I don't think it's going to be enough to kind of outdo the Philly offense, because that offense is fast, it's quick, it's hard to stop, and I don't think the Redskins have enough defensively to stop the potent Eagles offense. So as good and as much as I like Kirk Cousins, despite him being a Redskin, I think the Eagles are too good here, and I have the Eagles improving to 3-0.
I agree with you. How about Darren Sproles? Darren Sproles?
Yes, and we said, I'm sorry, Stanko, but we said even last week, have you seen their offense? I would run a screen pass to Sproles 24/7, and you would never lose. There's no way to stop this guy.
No. I mean, I think that the Eagles knew they were getting a good signing when they signed him. I don't think they expected him to be as productive as he has been the first 2 games, and how explosive he was last week. 21 fantasy points, had some runs that were just reminiscent of him back in his glory days, where he was absolutely dynamic. He's been dynamite for them. Frankly, I think he's had a more impressive year than LaShawn McCoy thus far. But I do have to agree with you. Granted, I think this game will be close. Because I think that the Redskins are going to come out with the fire with Kirk Cousins under the helm to start a game. He's going to have a full week of prep with the starters. I think it's going to be close. And the Eagles have started off games notoriously bad. And I don't think they can afford to do that this week, but I think that Chip Kelly will have them right for the start of the game. I'm interested to see how many points are scored, because both defenses aren't too solid. But I got the Eagles, I'd say, coming out on top, maybe a 27-24 kind of finish.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think the spread is probably about 7, And yeah, I'd probably go around there. And yeah, I think that there's going to be good signs for the Redskins, obviously with Captain Kirk, but I just don't.
I like that, Captain Kirk. I like that.
Yeah, you already know. I think the Redskins are going to win more games now this year than if RG3 was their quarterback, to be completely honest. But it's not going to start this week. So I just think the Eagles are too dangerous to a team. I agree with you that the Eagles really aren't a first-half squad, but when they get going, it's really hard to stop.
Yeah, and I think a key for the Redskins in this game is going to be ball control. You're going to have to keep the ball away from the Eagles. The Colts were able to do that last week in the first half, and that's why they were able to have a successful first half and get the lead. But in the second half, you saw what happens when the Eagles get multiple possessions. They get steamrolling, and then they can't be stopped. So I think Alfred Morris and Roy Lou are going to be big for Washington, but I think that the Eagles will find a way to get on the board early, and they'll be able to get the win. So we both agree on the Eagles there. We're 4 for 4. Now let's go to your New York Giants, Mike Ritz. They are hosting the Houston Texans. I'm going to give the floor to you. Take it away.
The G-Men will get their first win of the season. We were so wrong last week, Stanko, in picking them. Basically, anytime you pick them, it's probably going to be wrong, and I really hope I'm not wrong here, but it very well can happen. But I can't lose faith in the squad. I think that the Giants are a desperate team looking for a win. I can't see the Texans starting off 3-0. And I just think that this week, this is going to be the week that the Giants are going to get it done. We saw signs last week with the Cardinals, at least with a pretty good Cardinals defense, that the Giants offense somehow managed to work, even if it was just for a quarter. We're seeing signs of at least improvement. And I think that if Victor Cruz just stops dropping the friggin' football, which it seems like he's doing that every time Eli passes the ball, I really feel somehow, some way, that the Giants are going to come away and win this game. I could be wrong. And if I get burned here, that's fine, because I'm going down with the Giants ship. But, Stanko, I'm picking the Giants. I'm staying true to my squad. The G-Men are going to get their first win of the year at MetLife Stadium, Stanko.
All right, now I have one question for you. You picked the Giants on the podcast, last week, correct?
No, I did not.
You picked the Cardinals?
I picked the Cardinals, and then when I heard Carson Palmer was hurt, I switched to the Giants, and then I got burned.
Okay, so all right, so I did the same exact thing as you, so we're still okay on the tally. I just wanted to make sure. Because of that injury, that update happened after the podcast went out, so we both changed our picks online. But the podcast was already out, so obviously we couldn't adjust that. Anyway, right. We disagree here, Mike Ritz. We disagree.
I figured we were.
So, yeah. Listen, I think that Houston Texans, while their offense is not great, their defense is still very good. And I don't think the Giants have done a great job protecting Eli Manning, and I think he's going to be under pressure throughout the game. And Eli Manning is turnover prone. And listen, if you turn the ball over as many times as the Giants have, you're not going to be able to do well. And guess what? Arian Foster is playing pretty well. I'm not a big Arian Foster fan. I'm not. I never really have been, if you will, especially since his injuries and stuff. But he has 241 rushing yards throughout the first 2 weeks and a touchdown. Andre Johnson has 12 receptions for 167 yards, granted no touchdowns yet. But DeAndre Hopkins has 2 touchdowns. Listen, I'm a little worried for the Giants this week because I think that the Houston Texans have big play capability. And I think that the Giants' turnovers are going to give them enough opportunities to have those big plays, and it's going to be the reason why the Giants come up just short by like a field goal. But I think that the Houston Texans will come out on top due in large part to their defensive front, pressuring Eli Manning, which I think will lead to more turnovers, which will then in cause and effect doom the Giants in the end.
Well, we will just have to see about that, Stanko.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate your faith. I do. It is warranted. I appreciate it, and it's well respected. Brett is wrong.
It's going to happen. This is no fake. This is going to happen. The Giants are going to do it this week, Stanko. They're going to do it.
All right. We'll see what happens.
I really hope so, Johnny. I really, really hope so. We can't start out 0-3. We started off.
Right.
We started off 0-6 last year. We can't be doing that again. We gotta get this win this week.
Yeah. Let's get to a game that obviously I think we'll both agree on. We got the Minnesota Vikings traveling to New Orleans to play the 0-2 Saints. The 0-2 Saints. Granted, no Adrian Peterson in that whole debacle for Minnesota. Matt Castle still at the helm at quarterback. And coming off a really rough game against the Patriots, the Saints are obviously angry. I think this one's pretty easy. You don't pick against Drew Brees at home in their season opener.
Yeah.
In their home opener, in their home opener.
But who would have thought this squad would be 0-2? I mean, I guess it's not that outlandish to say that they're going to – that if they're going into the season 1-1, it's so that they're going to be 1-1. I say, okay, they'll drop one to the Falcons. But you can't be losing to the Browns. I don't care what it is. I don't care if the Browns have improved. I don't care what the Browns are doing. You can't lose to Cleveland if you're the Saints with that offense. What their defense has just been so bad. So this is basically a bye week for them because there's no way they're going to lose to the Vikings here. And without AP, they Vikings have nothing going for them right now. And I think this is a perfect time for the Saints to play the Vikings. First of all, they need a win. They need to figure out what they're doing on defense, and I feel like they'll have this will be good with a punching bag that the Vikings are going to do without Adrian Peterson. So the Saints are going to have no problem getting their first win of the year. But I'm just still distraught that our lock of the week, our stone cold lock of the week, was the Saints, and they let us down, Stanko. I'm not forgiving them yet. But maybe,
no, I know.
Maybe with a win this week, it all be forgiven.
I'm genuinely upset because I don't know who saw them starting off 0-2, and if you had that predicted, God bless you. I think that this game is pretty straightforward. I'm interested to see how the Saints offense will look without Mark Ingram, who's out for an extended period of time. You have Pierre Thomas and Kendall Robinson in the backfield now for New Orleans. Different look maybe. Not as much of a power running game, if you will, with Ingram out. But I do think that Saints win at home in their home opener against the Vikings team that has nothing going for them on the offensive end. So we both agree the Saints there. Now let's head to a team that I think right now has risen up all power rankings and has cemented itself as, I'd say, one of the best teams in football right now, Mike Ritz. The Cincinnati Bengals are 2-0, and they're hosting the Tennessee Titans. I mean, for me, I think that the way the Atlanta played on Thursday against the Bucs, it just kind of exemplifies how good the Bengals really are. The fact that they beat them without A.J. Green even playing.
They are a scary football team, Stanko. I 100% agree with you. They're going to have no problem beating up on the Titans this week. I think the Bengals have all of the weapons that they need to be successful. They just haven't been able to get over the hump, but they'll have no problem this week. I believe they're about a 6-point favorite last time I looked. They're going to have no problem with that. I think the Bengals, they're playing at home. They're a scary team. Titans, although they're pretty good, they're not as good as the Bengals. So I just think it all relies on if Andy Dalton can be that quarterback that at least can he be the quarterback that his contract says that he is. And let's see right now they are playing phenomenal football, and I don't think it's going to stop here in week 3 either.
I agree. They are third in the NFL in passing offense with 301 yards passing per game. Now, A.J. Green is questionable this week with the turf toe. Not entirely sure if he'll play. He wants to play, and it seems like he's going to, but how many snaps is he going to get, and is he going to be needed against the Titans? That's going to be the big question. But regardless, Andy Dalton playing very well so far this season, and Giovanni Bernard playing well. The one thing I will say is that they're 27th in pass defense, averaging 270 yards let up per game through the air. But for me, the Titans' passing attack is not scary enough to warrant any concern to me. So that's just I got the Bengals winning this one by at least 10 points.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Also, Bengals are undefeated at home. They didn't lose at home at all last year, and they won their first home game this year. So they've won their last 9 straight home games. So that also goes into the equation.
I mean, it's still Ralph Wilson Stadium, but I guess it'll do. All right.
Now let's get to a very interesting game, and one we might disagree on, but I think regardless, I think we can agree this is going to be a very interesting contest. The Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cleveland Browns in an AFC North battle. It's a rivalry game, and the Browns are coming off a big win against the Saints. How do you see this game shaking out, Mike Ritz?
I had a feeling that you were going to go off the cuff here, but I'll tell you why I'm picking the Ravens. First of all, as good as the Browns have played at home so far, look at the teams they've played. They played the Steelers, and they played the Saints, whose defenses have declined, and I think that's going to be the key. I still take, out of those three teams, I think the Ravens defense has looked the best so far this season. I still believe that. I really do. They are great defending the run, and frankly, that's how Cleveland has really gotten through these games, by their control of running the football. Even without Ben Tate, their backs in West and Crowell have been fantastic. But Ravens have been able to control the run. The opposition they've only left 89 yards per game in the past two games, and I think that's kind of what made me pick the Ravens right now, trying to get them over the hump. As good as the Browns have played at home, and as surprising as the win as they had against the Saints, I think that the Ravens, with a little more rest than the Thursday night game last week, will be able to handle the Browns here on the road.
You are correct in gathering that I'm going off top. I'm picking the Cleveland Browns. I think that their rushing attack is going to be able to do okay against the Ravens defense, which is, it's top third in the NFL. I think they're ranked 8th right now, if I'm remembering correctly. But listen, I don't have faith in the Ravens, and I'm not a big Ravens guy. But the big thing is that they went up against two very good running backs, and the Ravens went up 89 yards. I don't know why, but it's a gut feeling. The Cleveland Browns fans are now more excited than I think they've been in a long time, because they're coming off a huge win against the Saints. And now it's a division rival coming to town for two state home games. Brian Hoyer's played well. I think Brian Hoyer is going to need to have Jordan Cameron play. He's questionable according to ESPN last time I checked. But they need to have that tight end in the game, because he is their best passing option and passing playmaker. But I'm going to go with the Browns with a 6 defense. I think they'll create some turnovers. And I still think that the Ravens are going to be a bit distracted by the whole entire thing happening with Ray Rice and now the owner covering it up and stuff like that. And I think that's going to be a little bit of a distraction. Granted, last Thursday it wasn't a distraction at all with the Ray Rice video. But my gut tells me the Cleveland Browns, and I got to go with my gut. So let's go the Browns. Let's go Dogs.
How about a great scheduling for the Browns? 3 straight home games start the year.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. But what do they do after this now? They have a bye, and then they're granted, the end of their season is at Carolina and at Buffalo, so that doesn't do them any favors.
Yeah, no, that definitely doesn't. That is quite unfortunate, but that's I figured looking at the match this week, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Stanko picked the Browns. So we'll see. It's gonna be a close game. I would see it as a low scoring game as well. I think it's gonna be a low scoring affair. Yeah,
I think it's gonna be low scoring. But let's get to a game that's gonna be really high scoring. I think the Green Bay Packers, who escaped with the win against the Jets after a little controversy, they came back. They got the W, and they're going to be heading to Detroit, which kind of got, I don't know if it's going to get exposed, but they got shut down by the Carolina Panthers defense last week. I think this game is going to be really, really high scoring. It's indoors with two quarterbacks who love to sling it. I got to think you agree with me here.
I completely agree with you, and I expect a high scoring game. It's probably going to be one of the most entertaining games to watch. But I'm going to pick the Packers. I'm going to pick the Packers because every time the Lions show what they are capable of, I always feel like they take a step back. And that's exactly what has happened this year. They had a good win, obviously a good win against the beat-up Giants, and then they just came back and they put up a dud against the Panthers. And I feel like there's another opportunity to kind of show where the Lions are, especially against the best team in their division. And I think every time the Lions have an opportunity, they always fall short. For whatever the reason, they always fall short. And I think they're going to again. I think the Packers are too good. I think Aaron Rodgers is too good. And although they are playing in Detroit, I just feel that Green Bay really is gonna handle this game. Let's see. Obviously they have Calvin Johnson for Detroit, but I think the Packers are just too explosive of an offense, and I think the Packers are gonna hold it down.
I think this game. If you look at it on paper, it's a toss-up because you got two quarterbacks who love to sling the ball with two great receivers, and Matt Stafford, and Calvin Johnson and Jordy Nelson. But I got to go with the team that doesn't shoot itself in the foot, like you said. I got to go with a team that's more consistent, and that's the Green Bay Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers is less prone to making mistakes than Matthew Stafford, and I think that I have more faith in the Packers than I do the Lions, and that's the only reason I can say I'm going with them, because I think this game is very even on paper. I think if you're a fantasy football fan, this is a game where you hope you have someone in their lineup playing in this game, because I can see both teams getting into the 30s in points. It's going to be high flying. I think a ton of deep passes, because both secondaries aren't very good. I think it's going to be really entertaining. But I got the Green Bay Packers in like a 38-35 win.
This is probably the most high-scoring affair of the week, and probably the most entertaining, despite the game of the week that everyone's going to be talking about, which we will get to in a few minutes.
Yes. So we both got the Packers there. Now let's get to my lock of the week, the last 1 o'clock game we're going to talk about. It's the Indianapolis Colts going to Jacksonville. This is my lock of the week purely for the fact that Andrew Luck saw his team blow a lead in the fourth quarter against the Philadelphia Eagles. Andrew Luck is known for fourth quarter comebacks, and he couldn't lead one. I think it's going to be looking for vengeance against the Jacksonville team that has looked dreadful in the first 2 weeks. Toby Gerhardt's done nothing at running back for them. That's supposed to be a rather big signing. This is my lock of the week. The Colts are not going to lose a division game against Jacksonville. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I was surprised that Andrew Luck threw that pick, to be honest, and I think that the Colts have a lot going for them, and they've just come up short back-to-back weeks, but they played the teams. I mean, you really can't knock the Colts just yet. They played Denver and they played Philly, so it's two of the better teams in the league that they've had to go up against, and they held their own against both. So I feel like they have the talent to kind of go up against those two squads, and they're going to annihilate Jacksonville. I don't care if the team's in Jacksonville, but this is two completely different 0-2 teams. So I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. The Colts are going to handle this one.
All right. So fun fact: Jacksonville's been outscored this year thus far, 75-27. And Mike Ritz, I'm going to give you some spot trivia. I want you to guess. Where do the Jacksonville Jaguars rank in terms of passing yards per game?
Passing yards per game?
Yes.
Oh, man. I mean, I don't think they're the worst. I'm going to say like 28.
Oh, my God. You are right on the button. 28.
Yes. There you go. How about that?
You son of a gun. All right. Next one. Where do they rank in rushing yards per game?
Oh, well, considering I have Toby Gerhardt in my fantasy team, I'll probably say last. They got to be last.
You son of a gun. You're staring at my computer screen. They've only averaged 44.5 yards rushing per game thus far.
That I did not know. I'll be honest. Thank God you didn't ask me that. I did not know that. 44 yards?
Yeah. I'm not going to quiz you on their defense. You went 2 for 2 on the offense again.
I would have no idea. I would not know.
But they ranked 26.
I got to assume that they're low.
Yeah, they ranked 26 in passing defense and 28 in rushing defense. So, yeah, things are looking good for the Colts in Week 3. I think they'll get their first win. I think that's okay. So let's move on to the 4 o'clock game, shall we? But let's get to the 2 games before this week's main event, if you will. Let's first go to San Francisco at Arizona. Carson Palmer not going to play again, yet San Francisco coming off of a loss to the Chicago Bears. What do you see happening in this game, Mike Ritz? The Cardinals are coming off a win against your New York Giants without the starting QB.
Yeah, I really can't see the Cardinals starting the season off 3-0 with two of those games without their starting quarterback. I think the Niners are too good. They had that game. They really did against the Bears, but it just showed that the Bears are pretty good. The Bears are a pretty good football team when they're kind of pushing the brink, and they were against the Niners. And I think they surprised the Niners. I think that's what it was. They really did surprise the Niners, and they stole that game from them last week. And I simply think the 49ers are just a better team than the Cardinals. I think that the Cardinals are they're clearly banged up. They were lucky that they played against a team like the Giants, who just simply couldn't put everything together. I still can't get over that they beat San Diego because they shouldn't have in Week 1. But I think their luck stops here against San Francisco.
Yeah, I agree with you, though I will say I'm impressed with the Cardinals' rushing defense. They're like third in the NFL, only averaging 66.5 yards rushing against them per game. And that's without Darnell Dockett, who's a very big player on their defensive line. So I give them credit for that. But I think with that being said, I think Colin Kaepernick's going to look to have a bounce-back week. And Frank Gore, the inconvenient truth, if you will, he will find a way to get some rushing yards. So I agree. I think San Francisco's going to win this game at least by a touchdown.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would love to see Frank Gore get in the end zone because I do have him by fantasy.
Yeah, you got some personal investment. Another 4 o'clock game. Two teams. Both of them are coming off of a loss. You got the Kansas City Chiefs heading to Miami. Miami laid a dud in the Mecca of Ralph Wilson Stadium after a big win against the Pats Week 1. And the Chiefs put up a fight against the Denver Broncos but couldn't come out with a win. They came out with a 7-point loss. This game's a little bit intriguing to me. It's surprisingly somewhat difficult for me to pick. I don't know how you're feeling about this game.
I agree with you because Jamal Charles is banged up. So is he still questionable for he's been questionable all week. And
that's the last I've read is that he's questionable.
Yeah, he had a high ankle sprain that he had last week, so he is questionable. But I'm still going to go with the Chiefs here just because is Andy Reid really going to start off the year 0-3, and the Dolphins really didn't look good against the Bills. I granted, it wasn't the Mecca, so anything's happened in the Mecca. But I'm going to stick with the Chiefs here. They just have too much talent to be this bad. So I am going to stick right now, especially if Jamal Charles plays. I think the Chiefs are going to win this one handily.
We disagree once again, Michael Ritz. We disagree.
That's three so far.
It might be a record.
And we're not. And we aren't done yet.
No, we got some other good games coming up. So listen, the reason I say this is the Dolphins. Mike Wallace has had a resurgence, if you will. He's had a very good start to the year. He killed my Patriots Week 1, and he's playing well thus far. Now the question for me is the reason I kind of want to pick the Chiefs because Monte Ball is hurt. Noshawn Moreno. I always mix those two up. But Noshawn Moreno is hurt for them, so Lamar Miller is going to get them almost all the carries for the Dolphins. But the Chiefs ranked 23rd in rushing defense, not very good. And also their offense does not look good. They only ranked 18th. They're middle of the road in terms of passing attack and rushing attack. Jamal Charles has been a sloppy start to the season. And I'm going to give it the edge to Miami and their pass rush and their ability to get to the quarterback. I think that they're going to be able to do okay. And it's going to be close. It's a coin flip. I'm going to go with the home team because they played so well at home against the Patriots. Give them some confidence back. That's how I'm going with the Dolphins.
Bold strategy, Cotton. Bold strategy.
It is a bold strategy. Hopefully it'll pay off. I can't have another bad week of picks. I can't do it. I can't do it. So now, Mike Ritz, it's time to get to the game of the week. Everyone's going to be talking about it. All the pregame shows are going to be talking about it. It's the Super Bowl rematch. The 4:25 kickoff on CBS. Jim Nantz and Phil Simms on the call. The game at CenturyLink Field. Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos heading back into the danger zone, which is the Seattle defense. And it's a Super Bowl rematch. And will the Broncos get revenge against the Seahawks, Mike Ritz?
This is so hard. It really is. And sitting here right now, my gut is still telling me that somehow the Seahawks are going to win this game. I still believe that. And I'll be lying to you if we are back on this and you're going to be talking about how I switched my pick to the Broncos. But I think that coming up, first of all, playing in Seattle is a whole different animal. And as much as the bitter taste that's in Peyton Manning's mouth, I still think that defense and just the balance that Seattle has is going to be too much for Denver. And I think I'm a little surprised of Denver's defense so far this season. They were supposed to be very, very good. I think they've defended the run very well. But just the pass yards have been awful. And I think with that, I think Seattle is going to. I'm not going to say they're going to blow them out. They can win by less than a touchdown. It can be a field goal game. I think somehow Seattle manages to come out on top here in Seattle.
I agree with you. And the big thing for me is that the Denver Broncos rank 31. They rank 31st in passing defense. You mentioned that their secondary hasn't been good, and it hasn't. The addition of Aqib Talib was supposed to help them, but it has not. But they do rank 10th in the NFL in terms of rushing defense, allowing less than 100 yards per game. And the big question for me is whether or not the Seattle Seahawks are going to be able to get those rushing yards that they need, because they rank 4th in the NFL, averaging over 150 yards rushing per game. Marshawn Lynch is off to a monster start so far. Actually, Marshawn Lynch isn't off to a great start, but the addition of Percy Harvin running the ball out of the backfield has also been dynamic. He's averaging 14 yards a carry on his rushes and reverses and such. I agree. It's going to be really close, and it's going to be better than the Super Bowl game. I think we can both agree with that. But playing in Seattle coming off of a loss, nonetheless, extra motivated. I got to go with the Seahawks at home. I think Percy Harvin has a huge game for Seattle.
I'm going to ask you this thing. I mean, if you were just talking no money involved, and I said that Seattle's a 6-point favorite, who would you take?
Denver.
You would take Denver, so you would take the points.
I would take the points.
I think it's safe because I don't think the Broncos' offense is going to come out and be a dud like they were in the Super Bowl. I don't think that. I do believe this game is close. And I probably agree with you. I probably would take points, but yeah, I think Seattle is going to come out on top here.
I had the inclination you were going to go with Denver in the revenge pick, so I'm a little bit disappointed.
Sorry to disappoint you. I'm sorry.
All right, so there you go. Those are all the afternoon games for Sunday. Let's head to Sunday night football, where Carrie Underwood will sing us into the Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Carolina to play the Panthers. Panthers getting a big win, defeating the Detroit Lions, shutting out that offense, not shutting them out, but really just suffocating them so they couldn't move the ball effectively at all. Pittsburgh coming off a rather embarrassing loss last Thursday, 26-6 at the hand of their rival, the Baltimore Ravens. For me, this game, I think, as much as I want to say it's going to be close, I don't think it's going to be. I really think that Carolina is going to handle the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I completely agree with you. I think the Panthers are going to handle Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm not going to say that the Steelers, similar to we saw last week, is how the Steelers are going to be all year because it was a short week playing on the road. It's never a good recipe for success. So I don't think it was that they're going to be that bad. But the Steelers defense clearly has some issues. Le'Veon Bell has played well, but really that's kind of it. I mean, I just don't see. I don't think the Steelers have enough anymore. They don't have enough to kind of put themselves ahead of a lot of squads. They were my pick to still win this division, and they still are. But going up against a great Carolina defense, I don't think Big Ben and that offense is going to have enough because the Panthers looked great last week. So I'm going to stick with the Panthers at home against the Steelers.
Yeah, the big thing for me is that Ben Roethlisberger has been slinging the ball across the yard. and they rank 5th in terms of passing offense, or just about 300 yards gained passing per game. Ben Roethlisberger's been throwing the ball a lot. Now, a lot of it was due to the fact that last week they couldn't run the ball against the Ravens very well, so he had to throw the ball to try and catch up. I think that Carolina's defense is – I think I forgot how good they were, and I didn't give them enough respect heading into the season. I'll admit that. But Luke Kuechly is an absolute monster. He had 11 tackles last week.
He is a fiend.
Last week. I mean, he's obviously a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year again, just because of how consistent he is every single week. Proud of my Boston College Eagles, even though I didn't go to school there, but still proud. But I got the Panthers winning by at least 10. I think Pittsburgh's going to really struggle to score again. I think it's going to be like a 24-13 final score, Carolina's advantage.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with that. I really wouldn't be surprised with that. The Panthers D is too good, and let's see if they'll be able to handle Cam Newton as well. Yeah, they rank 30th in terms of rushing defense in the NFL, and guess what? Cam Newton can run the ball as a quarterback, an extra dynamic that Steelers have to look out for. Well, let's head to Monday night, shall we? Let's head to the game that everyone will be watching prime time, September 22nd, the Chicago Bears, heading to New York to play the New York Jets at MetLife Stadium. The Chicago Bears coming off a win, the Jets coming off a tough loss to the Packers. Unfortunately for me, the Jets are going to lose once again to an NFC North team. Granted, let me tell you this. Let me say this, Mike Ritz. I think that the Jets will lose only if Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey play. Because if they don't play, I'm going to have to foot my pick. Really? Really, because think about it. Who does Chicago have on the outside? Who's Chicago's number one receiver if both Marshall and Jeffrey, who are both right now questionable, don't play Monday night? I mean, that's a valid point. To answer your question, Santonio Holmes would be the number one option. Valid point. It is a valid point. How good did Brandon Marshall look last week, though? How good did he look last week? They were so I would be surprised. I would be surprised if they both don't play. Because even if Alshon Jeffrey doesn't get that many touches, just the fact that he's out on the field and they need to respect him, or even on the other side, if Brandon Marshall doesn't get touches and Alshon Jeffrey, but I agree with both of them on the field, I think that it's going to be a nightmare for the Jets secondary, and they aren't going to be able to contain Jay Cutler. And Cutler has shown that, look, they were able to handle the Niners in that fourth quarter last week. So it shows you what they can do. They have a steady back in Matt Forte, who hasn't had a good couple games, but I expect him to at least get some touches to open up that passing game for Cutler. So right now, I agree with you. If Marshall and Jeffrey are on the field, I don't have that many props taking the Bears here. Although the Jets are a 3-point favorite, it has to be known. Which I find very surprising, and I'd take Chicago if I were a betting man. Well, I mean, the reason I picked the Bears now is because Brandon Marshall was questionable heading into last week, and then he has last week where he scores 3 touchdowns. And every fantasy owner hates him because everyone's like, he's not playing. Then he's like, oh, wait, I'm going to play, and then put up over 20 points, and you didn't play me. Maybe I'm holding a little bit of a grudge. But listen, that's why I got to go with the Bears, because Brandon Marshall, I think, is going to end up playing despite the fact he's questionable. And then the Jets are in big trouble because I don't think the Jets' offense is going to be able to keep up. They weren't able to keep up with the Packers in the end, and I think the Bears have just as many weapons as the Packers do. So that's why I got to go with the Bears. So, Stanko, that's 3 disagreements. We rarely have more than 2. It's true. So we have 3 this week. It's true. To recap, you have your Giants getting their first win at home against the Houston Texans, and I have the Texans starting off the year 3-0. That's one. The second disagreement we had was going down. Where is the second disagreement? We have the Ravens. I have the Ravens getting a win against a Cleveland Browns team who has shown some promise at home. So I have the Ravens, and Jonathan Stanko believes that the Browns will start off the year 2-1. That I do have. And then our last disagreement, Kansas City Chiefs at Miami, a sneakily tough game to pick. I got Miami
and their defense going to be able to hold down the fort against Alex Smith and their offense, but you think that Kansas City, Jamal Charles will play and they'll be able to score enough points to outmuster the Dolphins D. So there you go. 3 differences, Mike Ritz. I'm hoping I can go 3-0 in those games and reclaim this 6th title, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm trying to bury you, Stank. I'm trying to bury you early to see. So
I know.
I'm hoping for a swing, but I don't care about the other 2 picks. As long as I get this Giants pick right, I'll be a happy man. I will be a happy man if the Giants win this week.
That is incredibly true. That's incredibly true. As long as your team wins, the rest of the week can go no matter what. My Patriots won last week. I wasn't too concerned with my only 4 right games because that's what one of them was the Patriots. That's all that matters. That's really all that
very
matters.
True. That is very true.
Same goes for fantasy. I will lose every fantasy game if the Patriots win every single game for the rest of the season. I'm okay with that.
That's
no
true.
problem.
That's valid.
But all right, Mike Ritz, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens come week 3. And good luck in fantasy this week.
Thank you. I need it. My team needs it. I'm struggling. Thank you. I'm struggling.
All right, Mike. We'll tally up the numbers come our next podcast and see who's on top. Always a pleasure, man.
All right, Johnny. I'll talk to you soon.